welcome to the show. Today I'm going to talk about Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2. And this is coming out just as we're getting the release of Kill Bill, the whole bloody affair, in certain cinemas. Which means they'll be in cinemas that are nowhere near where I live. Because you're getting in America, you're getting in Britain, UK. In UK it means you'll get them in the big cities, and that'll be it. So I just watched the originals were now out in 4K, so I just watched them on my projector. And I had a good time watching them, so I didn't really need the whole bloody affair. It'll come eventually to digital or 4K at some point, I suppose. Unless Tarantino says no, it can only be seen in the cinema. Which means most people who might want to see it would have to travel to see it, or they won't see it. So, I haven't watched these films for a while. It's just that thing is, as you get older, you don't watch films again and again. You just watch them every so often. So it was already on my to-do list for right about now anyway, maybe next year. And then when the whole bloody affair was announced, I thought, I'll just watch them just now. And it was enjoyable. I still prefer 2 to 1, which we'll get to why. But I like the second one a lot more than the first one. Mainly because I like story and character stuff more than show-offiness, really. But I think the first one has a major problem at one section of it that I don't think the second one has. Now, I'm going to say straight away, I really enjoy these films. There are some who are Tarantino skeptics who don't like his films that I know. There are some who are Tarantino fanboys who love everything, and you see, must be praising to him. It's like, nah, he's got his flaws like everyone else. I like his films, but I'm not going to overpraise every little thing he does because that's boring. What's the point? So, it's one of those things is like, I like the majority of his films, but there are problems. If you'll see my video on like Django Unchained or Inglourious Basterds, I have problems with the ending of both those films. But then again, I really liked Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I really liked Hateful Eight. So it just varies the film. And this one, or these two, I generally really like the story. I like overall what it is. I have like a few things I'm not so sure about, but even then, one of them is like, it's just a case of what the narrative does more than what that an actor was doing. So you'll probably know the Kill Bill story if you're watching this video. It's the bride is about to get married. She on her wedding day, on her wedding rehearsal day, she gets her and her friends get attacked. They all get killed. She gets put in a coma. She's heavily pregnant at the time. When she comes out of the coma, the baby's gone, and she thinks the baby's dead, and she's out for revenge because they destroyed her life, and she's going to kill them all. These are all her former comrades who did it, who are all led by Bill, who was her lover, and she's going to kill everybody, but Bill's going to come last because he's the main one. So in the first film, you get two of the people killed. In the second one, you get the 2 plus Bill to kill off. But of course, nothing ever happens in a Tarantino film in the most obvious way. The flashbacks and things like that, and it's told out of order. So the first person you see her attack is actually the second person she attacks in chronological order, but it's basically the introduction to the people she's after. So you basically get a scene. If this first scene is actually the best fight scene in the film, even though there's a big fight scene later on that to me isn't as good as this first fight scene. The first fight scene takes place in a suburban house, and in general Tarantino's fight scenes were better when he had limited space to have them in, because he's much more of a director who's interested in suspense and set up suspense and release suspense. When it comes to actual eye candy action, I don't think he's as good. He's not as inventive. It's like he needs limitations to be inventive, and I think we'll get to it, but his big action scene I don't think is as inventive as Some of this other scenes he has where he has to be tighter. So this first scene is really enjoyable. It's basically set up so you know that these are going to be brutal fights. People are going to get messed up in these fights. So it's between Vivica Fox and Uma Thurman. I've had a dry throat. So Fox and Thurman have obviously trained for ages to do this fight. It is brutal. They destroy the house. Then you have a dialogue scene as you find out a little bit about what's going on before Fox gets killed. Because obviously the bride can't get killed in the first fight scene because that would be stupid. But it is a brutal scene because to make up to the fact that you know she's not going to get killed, they go for brutality. So to make her work for her victory. And I think that's when the film works best and when she has to really work for the victories. Okay, there's a sequence coming up where I don't think she starts to work for the victories very much and it's not as satisfying. And then you get some backstory into how she recovered from the head injury, how she escaped from hospital. And then you go to Okinawa, where she's with Sonny Chiba, and he is a famous sword maker who she convinces to make a sword for her, even though he's retired, so she can kill Bill and his associates. And since he hates Bill, and he was the guy who trained Bill, he's like up for that. And the whole sequence is wonderful. I mean, the whole sequence in Okinawa is wonderful. Sonny Chiba's charming. Having Thurman have great chemistry. It's just a beautiful sequence. And then she's looking through the swords. It's all done in slow shots, slow moving shots, which remind me a lot of like late 70s, early 80s Argento, the way he moved the camera into things, and just this kind of sense of the atmosphere is more important than the story. And it's got this great melancholy to it. And that's what I love about the film when the films work. Which comes across more in the second film, really. But there are bits in the first film, even this melancholy in the dialogue between Fox and Thurman about how like Fox has moved on with her life, she's no longer an assassin. And it's like this sense of what a waste of all these people. So you get that in the film, but then you also have a terrific animated sequence where you get the backstory of Oishi Ren, which is the Lucy Liu character, and you get her backstory as she was an assassin, how she became an assassin, how her family was killed, and how she became so brutal. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on, but it's going at 100 miles an hour constantly, and then the film just stops dead when you get to Japan. And you have a big set piece where the camera's moving all over the place through this club as we're getting to know this club and getting to idea what this club is. And this is Oishi Ren Club, where all her... Because she's taken over the Japanese Yakuza as a half Japanese, half Chinese woman with American blood in her as well. And you see all of her goons and things like that. And she runs this club that Thurman goes to attack, and there's some nice shots, there's some good music at the start, and there's very De Palma shots of moving through the club and crane shots, things like that. It's very Carlito's way. De Palma Carlito's way. I mean, it's an obvious influence. I'm not saying anything bad, because there's a lot of De Palma influence in this film. There's an obvious one with the split screen early on, but the club sequence during the setup is very De Palma. Much more than the obvious one with the split screen. How it's all built up and slowly we're going towards the fight, but we're going to take our time. And that's what Tarantino is better at, was like he understands that stuff a lot better. But when you get to the fight scene, now I like a good fight scene. Like if King Hu does great fight scenes, La Kern Ling, I can never get his name right. He did the choreography for Chen-Chi for a long time and then did his own films like The Legendary Weapons of China and things like that. He does wonderful fight scenes. All of them are really inventive. It's the people in limited situations, they have to find ways around it. And then when you get to the actual major fight scenes, they all have a story and it's all wonderfully done. There are terrific action directors who can do these fight scenes really well. I don't think Tarantino's an actor that great. He can do violence, but the problem with this is there's not that much invention. Someone goes in and cuts the arm off the sidekick of Lucy Liu's character, and then instantly kills like 4 or 5 of the henchmen who are meant to be the bodyguards of this supposedly scary character, and they all die instantly. And it's like, well, how could these henchmen really? They die by basic blows. It's not inventive. Because basically you're training actors to do all these fight scenes, but no matter how much you train and how they work, there's only so much invention they're going to be. Like in the Matrix movies, the first movie, Keanu Reeves only did basic stuff so that he trained for months to do what in some ways was basic. And then by the second, third films, he was doing more stuff because he got better at it. And that took time to learn. And then we got to John Wick, he'd already had a lot of the basic training, so he could do more and more inventive stuff. So it's like, in a lot of bits you'd see, like, sometimes you could see the stunt women, and sometimes you could just see this action's been limited to what the actor can do. And it's like, I know Tarantino doesn't like the influence of the Matrix that much, but the Matrix did this first, the idea of training the actors up to do this stuff. At least in the Western world. I mean, they trained actors in the East a lot beforehand, which just became part of their knowledge of how to do things like this. But it's already been shown by the Matrix how to do it. And I think the Matrix films did this better. The Matrix films got some heat in Tarantino because he said, oh, they used CGI. Yeah, eventually. But for a lot of the bully brawl, it was lots of people in masks, of people wearing masks, fighting Keanu Reeves. They did a lot of stuff on the freeway sequence, car chases that were fairly brutal using actual cars, you know. So it was like, you seen them were cheating, but it was like, not really. They did so much practical. And they did it more inventive than this. This is just like, I'm doing it practical, but I'm missing the essence, which is storytelling. Because once she goes into that club, and once you get the whole setup, the sequence is basically over. She has to kill lots of people to get to Lucy Liu's character, and she does, and there's like, we have the whole thing of like 88 people coming in, she has to fight them all off. And it suspends disbelief because there's another sequence where she's fighting this other henchman who's this girl in this kind of schoolgirl outfit. She's got this thing she goes around. That's well done, but it's not like amazingly edited. There's a sense of a director working out how to do it, but he doesn't have the kind of grace of a master doing it, who's done this thing so many times and has some early mistakes. So Tarantino went straight in to do the big stuff. And so you compare it to someone who's really good at this stuff, it looks lesser. Because he doesn't know how to do certain things to add the grace moments to it. And he's just doing repetitive stuff again and again. So, I mean, there's a sequence in Blade 2 where Wesley Snipes does a fight with all these vampires that come at him like later on in the film, and it's basically done as a parody of this kind of sequences, like WWE type parody of it. Because Del Toro's tongues in cheek a little bit with it. So we have to have this sequence, but let's have some fun with it. And that was more fun than this sequence, which had lots of arms being cut off. But all the gangs are like stormtroopers, they just run out after you get killed, get arms cut off left and right, and the only time she's really doing anything inventive is against Gordon Liu, who comes in this one and is like the big boss, final boss to kill before you get to Liu. And it's like, the rest of the time, it's like, why didn't just someone attack her from the front, someone else just get her from the back? And you're thinking that the whole time, and it's like, it's not like she's a great threat, it's just everyone's waiting a ton to get killed. And there's no invention, there's just lots of gore, and it's just gags after gag. And the gags aren't that great, and they're less inventive than they are when Tarantino's in a limited location, like at the beginning of the film or in the second film. And it's like, you're not showing me you're great at this. You're showing me that you've hired good people, but and this thing took weeks to shoot. But it was like, well, when you're shooting this stuff, did you not look at it and go, this is basically the same thing again and again? So I was technically it's impressive, but for storytelling, for progression of like threat, the progression back and forth of things happening that keep you intrigued, this sequence didn't do anything for me. It was just like, there's a lot of gore gags. That's it. It's just gore gag after gore gag. There's so many action movies from Asia I'd rather watch that are much more inventive than this. And again, some of it I think was just arrogance of youth. Like, I can do this amazing thing straight off the bat, and it's like, no, you can't. And maybe they storyboarded a bit more and added more storytelling into that sequence. It might have worked better, but it's just boring. It's just the same thing again and again. So yeah, that didn't do much for me. And it is the kind of sequence in the film that kind of takes me out of the film, because I was really into the film till then, and then once that's over and we get to her facing Lucy Liu, I'm back into the film, because that's a sequence that's basically a kind of tribute to like 60s Japanese cinema, 70s Japanese cinema, with all the atmosphere for a fight, basically, a samurai fight, and that works really well and it's beautifully done. And it's like, why was the other sequence as good as this? This is a simple thing, probably took about a week to do. Another thing took weeks and weeks, and it's not as good as this simple thing. And it's not as good as the simple thing you did earlier, or the animated sequence. And it's like, it just, everyone's really polite about it, saying, oh, this is an amazing thing. It's like, really? Is it really? If you watch a lot of films, no, it's not really that. I don't think time was just better suspense than it is at action. It's just like when he did these Grindhouse film, the weakest thing was the actual action scene at the end, compared to all the stuff that happened before it, which was much more interesting than the actual car chase, because it's just better build up. So now we go into part 2, which is, for me, the more interesting one, where you get her. She's going after the more interesting characters in this one. So you've got Bill finally appears, because Bill's not in the first one, you just get his voice. And then the second one, he appears instantly and starts talking. You get his point of view a lot more. And you also get Bud, played by Michael Madsen, which probably his best part of the film, I think. Because he's the one assassin that you're kind of sympathetic towards. I mean, he's the one who's actually, he doesn't want to die, but he is the one who actually has guilt and is self-destructive, and he really knows that they're in hell and he's living in purgatory. So you really have some ties, emotional ties to him. You also Ellie Driver, where you get a little bit dull hand in the first film, you get a lot more in the second film, and she's like the meanest, nastiest of them all. And she's the one who's a pure warrior of them all, who wants to be, she's in competition with the bride, and is that thing of the one who wants to be the bride, but is the kind of, she didn't make it, and she's bitter about it. And everyone else knows she never made it either, and everyone else can prod her, and she does not like that. Like, she's the one who's like basically the copycat. After the bride went, she ended up signing up to Bill and become his lover. She was the one that wanted to kill the bride when she was in a coma. She does not like it when Bud takes the mickey at her, because he knows exactly what she is, and she knows it. He's got her number. So there's lots of interesting stuff going on here with the characters. Bill himself, played by Dave Carradine, is an interesting figure, very talkative, very much a planner, very much like someone who's working things out. He sends people to do his job now. The good part of the casting is the methodical nature of Carradine really works. The sense of, this is someone who can build things slowly over time. This sense of, like quiet danger. And the sense of someone who could switch from being a killer to being something else over time. The downside is he's not scary, and Bill should have been scary. And I'm not sure if it's the actor's fault because I just think the stuff that he was asked to do ultimately there wasn't a scene in the second film that reminded you he meant to be scary, because he was intimidating in the first film, but I think there was something missing in the second one. There was different people who were meant to be cast as this. Originally it was Warren Beatty and he turned it down, and then it was David Carradine and he took it. But apparently the third choice was Bruce Willis, so Carradine said no. Who would have maybe been less talky than Carradine, but would have been probably scarier, because Willis did have a kind of cold stare that could be really effective in films. So it kind of is one of those things where there's not going to be one perfect Bill, but I like Carradine's Bill. It's just like, it's one of those things where because of his nature, the way he's playing it, you did feel like you needed something in the second film that was to remind you he's scary. You know, because he does kill everybody in the start, and he does, you give that repeated in detail in the second film. But the way he plays it is much more that other people are dangerous rather than him. So there's that thing is you did feel you needed something else. But that's just a nitpick. I still really enjoy him as Bill. It's just like there was something like in the second half of that film, is lacking threat. The threat comes from the other people, really. And you get a lot of my favourite sequences in these two films around the second one. You have the Buried Alive sequence, which is terrific, because just the whole setup of Thurman going to kill Matt, and he gets one up in her and buries her alive, and it's just a terrific sequence, her trying out of it. And it also leads into the sequence which is tutored by Pai Mei. He's also played by Gordon Liu, and that's a terrific sequence as well that really delivers. It's beautifully shot. Liu is great as a total bastard who's training Thurman to shoot through pain, and he loves being cruel. And it's just wonderfully done. Again, that's the thing where Tarantino's really good at those longer sequences where the actors have a chance to breathe and do their thing, and the atmosphere gets to go on, even though it's a comic book reality that's taking stuff from American Hitman movie, from Japanese Hitman movie, Japanese samurai movie, Chinese kung fu movies, taking bits from everything and creating its own little mythology. He sits with it and lets the details fill in. You get a good scene from Carradine as he tells the story about Pai Mu and how he destroyed a Shaolin temple. All that stuff's wonderful. And then you come back and you finally get Mads versus Dalhana verbally, and then you've got Thurman versus Hannah. All that stuff's wonderful. Again, the big fight scenes take place in a limited location. In both the Buried Alive bit and in this basic trailer. And that's far more inventive than anything in the big action scene in the first film. It's just way more inventive, and it's like, this is what you kind of wanted more of in the first big fight scene, where this kind of inventiveness would have been handy. Where basically the whole thing is destroyed as they fight each other. And everyone gets a payoff that is interesting for the character. And then finally you get Thurman vs. Bill, which is wonderfully done. Again, it's a dialogue scene, them talking. You're getting more from Bill's perspective, you get more from her perspective. She finds her daughter's alive. We know that from the end of the first film, but she doesn't know that. And again, it's wonderfully done. All this stuff's wonderfully done. It's some of the best Tarantino stuff. And you get the conclusion, you get the final payoff, and you get the kind of final emotional catharsis for the character. All that stuff's wonderful. That's why it's one of my favourite Tarantino's films. It's got so much of his best stuff in it. Well, I think the first one has bits of his best stuff and bits of his worst stuff. So it's like one of those things. It's like the film has its flaws, but the best stuff overtakes the worst stuff for me. So even though I can be critical of that one sequence, everything else really works in the films. It's just that one bit I don't like, because just so much of the stuff is just him being him, and and he's making a film for himself, obviously. It's like, you're invited if you like it, but he's making it for himself. And that's what I think works for certain directors when they're doing that. It's like, that's really what you want, because that's when you're going to get some of the most interesting things. Sometimes it will fail, but sometimes it won't. And this film mostly doesn't. So, I really enjoyed Kill Bill 1 and 2. I think it's very much one of Tarantino's better films. You know, I don't really rank them like what's the best, what's the worst. It's just like, this is one of the ones I'd place really high compared to other ones I'd place much lower. So, even with that one flaw I've got with it, the good stuff really is really good. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope if you're a Tarantino fan, you're not going to be foaming at the mouth over my criticisms of that one sequence, because I love the rest of it. The rest of it's really wonderful. It's just one bit. So that's me for now. Bye.